Clemson quarterback Cade Klubnik was one of the highest quarterback recruits just a few years ago, and he's coming off his first year as a starting quarterback for Clemson in 2023. So I want to take some time in a few minutes and talk about what went well, but more so, what are the next steps in his development? Where can he improve? Like his biggest improvement areas. And it's also important to remember, quarterbacks are always going to be the harshest and most critically judged on the field, but at the same time, they're the most important position. So I think it kind of comes with the territory. So I want to talk about the improvement areas and kind of what the outlook is for 2024 for Cade Klubnik. So let's look at his numbers real quick from last year in 2023. Again, we're not going to have a film breakdown right now, but if it's something that's of interest to maybe some Clemson fans, we'll put out a film breakdown. But his numbers in 2023, his completion percentage was 63.9. He had 2,844 yards passing, 19 passing touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 4 touchdowns on the ground. And his biggest number that stands out to me is his yards per attempt, which are at 6.3, which is going to be on the kind of lower end of the rankings, probably in any conference, right? So I do want to talk about maybe kind of why that happened and kind of where you can improve and kind of where you can take the next steps. I think the biggest next step is just finding ways to stretch the field, finding ways to open up the offense and push the ball downfield, because that's going to allow a lot more stuff to go on, a lot more creativity. So before we keep going on, if this is your first time tuning into the channel, we sincerely thank you. We're just a big quarterback hub. We talk all things quarterbacks. College football quarterbacks are kind of our main topic. We cover kind of the landscape of quarterbacks in college football. But we also have a podcast where we have current and former quarterbacks come on. We talk all quarterback kind of content and topics. And we also do a lot of film breakdowns as well. So any quarterback-related content is all fair game here. So Cade Klubnik, let's get into kind of the steps in the improvement area. And I also think it's important to remember before we dive into these areas to improve on, it was only his first year starting in college football. Like it's a really tough job. Like I think sometimes we just assume, okay, like Trevor Lawrence is going to happen, or Deshaun Watson. Like when these young quarterbacks get started early and they have so much success, sometimes that can put kind of an unfair expectation on other quarterbacks. But I get it, a high recruit, and it kind of comes with the territory. But if we look at some of the quarterbacks the past, at least last year, like that had another opportunity to develop and get more experience, they had some pretty good years, right? Like Jackson Dart comes out to me. Like he was a quarterback, talked about quarterback competition. They brought in a few quarterbacks to compete with him. Then he had one of the best years in the SEC. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC heading into 2024 now. Even Jaden Daniels. I know it was, he was had a few more years starting under his belt, but his 2022 season was kind of just, people are talking about, man, is Garrett Nussmeier going to take his job? And he comes out and he is the Heisman winner, right? So I think it's important to remember, like, Cade is a young quarterback and he's not a finished product by any means. And sometimes this takes experience and time to develop. So let's look at the improvement areas. And I think it's really, I think, kind of one big area, but we're going to go ahead and make it two. Number one area, pushing the ball downfield. How can we spread the ball a bit more? We already talked about the yards per attempt for 6.3, right? He only went over 300 yards passing twice last year. That was against Miami. There was that overtime loss, I believe, right against Miami. But his completion percentage was like 52, maybe. And then Charleston Southern, right? So 2 times over 300 yards passing. Everything else was under, right? Of his completions, only 28% of his completions, the ball was thrown in the air past 10 yards. So the defense had nothing to defend behind them, essentially. Like there was no real concern of them pushing the ball downfield. It was just the defense could kind of creep up. And that makes things tough as a quarterback. It shortens the field, makes the field a lot smaller, which in hindsight or kind of leads to the quarterback's job being a lot harder because you don't have as much of the field to work with. 62% of his passes were 9 yards or less. 23% were behind line scrimmage. So it was a lot of dinking and dunking, which is okay if you set up the passing game or if you set up the deep ball, which is what you want to do, which I think the offense can do, right? So a few reasons why maybe this was just not comfortable, just kind of continue to grow and develop with the experience of the offense, or maybe the offense kind of handcuffed or sheltered it, right? We don't know. We're not in the meetings. We don't know what's being said to who and kind of what is being coached. But the simple fact comes to that this has to improve to take the next step as offense. Your yards per attempt probably got to be 8-ish plus, right? In this day and age of college football, you're going to have more shots downfield. So with that said, though, something he actually did pretty good on was whenever he did get the ball out quickly, now it was shorter passes admittedly, but when the ball was coming out quickly, he actually did a pretty good job on that. It's when he held on the ball too long and tried to maybe take some deep shots. It just didn't develop for whatever reason. So I think number two, the improvement area number two is don't hold on to the ball too long. right? I think sometimes if what's working is getting the ball out quick, that's fine, and that's okay to do as long as it leads to pushing the ball down field. He was actually pretty good when the ball came out in less than 2.5 seconds. That's kind of a metric that PFF, Pro Football Focus, uses, which actually I think is a valuable method. Right now, that's not pushing the ball downfield, but I think these type of plays done well over and over again can lead to opportunities to push the ball downfield. He had 10 passing touchdowns to 0 interceptions when the ball came out in less than 2.5 seconds. More than half of his passing yards, again, he had 2,800 something yards, 2,844. More than half of his passing yards were out, came when the ball was out in less than 2.5 seconds. That's second most in the ACC. 50% of his passes, the ball was out in that time. He led the whole ACC in completions when the ball was out in 2.5 seconds, which is good, right? And I think for the offense to take the next step, you want to continue that. But then it's what happens when he held on the ball too long. What happens when he held on the ball for longer than 2.5 seconds? Well, when that happened, he had 9 touchdowns, but 9 interceptions. Every single one of his pick came when he held on the ball too long. He tried to do too much, right? So why would you hold on the ball too long? Like what does that tell us if you're looking just at these numbers? Well, it tells us a few things. Either one, he's trying to do too much, or two, he's just the reads maybe aren't clear, receivers aren't getting open. There's a few things going on that I think kind of lead to that. And so I think moving forward in the outlook for 2024, I think that the biggest takeaway is you just have to find ways to open up the field. So I think you have some success, you're good at getting the ball out quickly. Like those numbers are great. So now it's how do you continue to do that, but then expand on the next step. Expand on, okay, what happens when you hold on the ball 2.5 seconds or long, right? And again, that's just the number PFF uses, but it's what we're going off of. So I think it comes down to how can you improve that area of play. You want to continue to get the ball out quickly. That sets up some deep passes, but for whatever reason, the deep passes didn't work, right? And so the field became smaller. So I think the overall takeaway and kind of the big improvement areas is just like don't hold on the ball too long and push the ball downfield more, right? I think both can be done, even though it kind of seems like an oxymoron. But it comes down, you just have to find ways to get the ball out quick, to set up the deep ball, and improve on these longer and developing plays. Again, there's plenty of fault to go around. I kind of want to just chalk it up to like, hey, it was his first year starting, learning the offense, probably trying to get familiar with the system and receivers. And, I think I would bank on next year being a lot better. I really would. I think that's the outlook for 2024. I think he's a great recruit, has all the intangibles, has all the talent. I would bank on 2024 having a big jump and, maybe hitting those expectations that come along with being a 5-star quarterback. By the end of the day, it comes down to what we kind of talked about. You got to take these steps. You got to hit these improvement areas of pushing the ball downfield and doing it successfully and finding ways to kind of play well when these longer plays have to develop, right? But with that said, Clemson fans or just fans in general, what are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments below. Y'all obviously watched in more detail than I did. Yeah, I keep up with the games and go through film when I can, but what are your thoughts? What do you think Klubnik needs to do to take the next steps, or what are some other improvement areas that you would maybe deem important for his overall development and for Clemson in general? So let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and again, please consider liking, sharing, subscribing the video if you like this content. It's kind of niche stuff. It's just quarterback content, but if you like it, please consider subscribing and sharing. I do a bad job at trying to push it, so I'm trying to do better there. But yeah, thanks for watching. Follow us along, and we'll see you next time. Peace.